The history of Rome traces the evolution of a small settlement on the Tiber River into one of the most powerful empires in world history. Its story is traditionally divided into three major periods: the Roman Kingdom, the Roman Republic, and the Roman Empire. Over 12 centuries, Rome would expand to dominate the Mediterranean basin, leaving a profound and lasting legacy in Western law, language, architecture, and government that continues to influence the modern world. This is the history of Rome, from its mythological origins to its eventual decline. The myth and the monarchy. The story of Rome begins, according to Roman tradition, on April 21st, 753 BC. Legend holds that twin brothers, Romulus and Remus, who were said to be sons of the war god Mars and descended from the Trojan hero Aeneas, were abandoned on the Tiber River by a threatened king. They were famously saved and suckled by a she-wolf, an image that became a foundational symbol of Rome. Once grown and aware of their heritage, the twins are said to have overthrown the king and founded their own city. During a dispute over its location, Romulus killed Remus and became the first king of the new city, which he named Rome after himself. This account is mythological. Archaeological evidence points to a more gradual origin, with separate villages on Rome, 7 hills, slowly coalescing into a single urban center around the 8th century BC. The legend of Romulus, however, was important for shaping a Roman identity, establishing a divine origin and a destiny for greatness. Roman tradition credited Romulus with founding key institutions, including the Senate, an advisory body of elders known as patres, whose descendants formed the patrician class, Rome's aristocracy. For approximately 2.5 centuries, Rome was governed as a kingdom. This period laid the city's institutional groundwork. A succession of 7 kings ruled. Though they were not absolute monarchs, they governed with the consent of the Senate and were selected by assemblies of the people. These kings established Rome's early military and religious structures. Following Romulus was Numa Pompilius, credited with founding many of Rome's religious institutions. He was succeeded by the warrior king Tullus Hostilius, who expanded Roman territory. The final 3 kings were of Etruscan origin, reflecting the cultural influence of the powerful Etruscan civilization to the north. These monarchs, such as Lucius Tarquinius Priscus, oversaw significant construction projects, including the main sewer, the Cloaca Maxima, and the original Roman Forum. The last king, Lucius Tarquinius Superbus, or Tarquin the Proud, ruled as a tyrant. His oppressive reign culminated in an aristocratic rebellion led by Lucius Junius Brutus following an outrage committed by the king's son. In 509 BC, the monarchy was overthrown and Tarquin was expelled. The leading families of Rome resolved that a single man would never again hold absolute power. The Republic and the struggle of the orders. With the monarchy abolished, Rome established a new form of government, the res publica, or the public thing. The Roman Republic was designed with a system of checks and balances to prevent the concentration of power. Authority was held by elected magistrates, the most powerful of which were 2 consuls who served 1-year terms and commanded the army. The Senate became the central governing body, composed mainly of members from the patrician class. Popular assemblies, such as the Comitia Centuriata, elected magistrates and passed laws. The early republic, however, was defined by a prolonged social conflict known as the struggle of the orders. Roman society was split between the patricians, the wealthy, landowning elite who controlled political power, and the plebeians, who comprised the majority of the population as farmers, merchants, and laborers, but had limited rights. The plebeians' leverage came from their essential role in the army. On several occasions, they conducted a secessio plebis, or secession of the plebs, leaving the city and refusing to fight until their grievances were addressed. Through this struggle, they secured significant political rights. They gained their own officials, the tribunes of the plebs, who held the power to veto acts of the Senate. A major victory was the codification of the 12 Tables around 451 BC, Rome's first written set of laws. These were displayed in the Forum, making the law public and standardized. Eventually, high offices were opened to plebeians, gradually lessening the distinction between the two orders. Concurrent with these internal conflicts, the Republic engaged in constant warfare with its neighbors. Rome systematically defeated the surrounding Latin tribes, the Samnites in a series of difficult wars, and the Etruscans. The city faced a significant setback in 390 BC, when a Gallic tribe invaded from the north and sacked Rome. The Romans recovered, and by 264 BC, the Republic had successfully conquered and unified the entire Italian peninsula under its control. Now a major regional power, Rome's expansion soon brought it into conflict with another great power in the Mediterranean, the Punic Wars and Mediterranean dominance. As Rome consolidated its control over Italy, it came into conflict with Carthage, the dominant maritime power in the Western Mediterranean. Based in modern-day Tunisia, Carthage was a Phoenician city-state with a vast trading empire and a formidable navy. The ensuing conflict, known as the Punic Wars, was a series of 3 major wars fought over more than a century to determine control of the region. The First Punic War began in 264 BC, primarily over control of Sicily. Rome, a land-based power, lacked a significant navy. In a notable display of Roman resourcefulness, they captured a beached Carthaginian warship, reverse-engineered its design, and constructed a large fleet. They added an innovation, the corvus, a boarding device that allowed their legionaries to fight on enemy ships. After 2 decades of conflict, Rome emerged victorious, and Sicily became its first overseas province. The Second Punic War was initiated in 218 BC by the Carthaginian general Hannibal Barca. In a renowned military feat, Hannibal led his army, including war elephants, from Spain across the Alps and into Italy. For 15 years, Hannibal's army operated in Italy, inflicting severe defeats on the Romans at battles like the Trebia, Lake Trasimene, and Cannae. The Battle of Cannae, in particular, was a tactical masterpiece of envelopment that resulted in the deaths of tens of thousands of Roman soldiers and posed an existential threat to the Republic. Despite these losses, the Republic did not capitulate. It adopted a strategy of attrition advocated by Quintus Fabius Maximus, avoiding direct engagements with Hannibal. Meanwhile, the Roman general Publius Cornelius Scipio took the war to Carthaginian territories in Spain and then invaded North Africa. This forced Hannibal to return to defend Carthage. In 202 BC, at the Battle of Zama, Scipio defeated Hannibal, earning the honorary name Africanus. Carthage was stripped of its empire and military. Decades later, a faction in the Roman Senate led by Cato the Elder provoked the Third Punic War. This conflict concluded in 146 BC with the complete destruction of the city of Carthage. In the same year, Rome also destroyed the Greek city of Corinth. These victories established Rome's undisputed hegemony over the Mediterranean. However, the rapid expansion and influx of wealth began to create severe internal pressures that would ultimately undermine the foundations of the Republic. The crisis of the late Republic, Rome's conquests, brought enormous wealth and a massive influx of slaves into the Republic. This had a profound impact on Roman society, as wealthy aristocrats used slave labor to create large agricultural estates known as latifundia. These estates drove small citizen farmers off their land, leading them to migrate to Rome and form a large, impoverished urban population. The growing economic inequality strained the social and political fabric of the Republic. This crisis was brought to a head by Tiberius and Gaius Gracchus, 2 brothers from an aristocratic family who advocated for land reform on behalf of the poor. In 133 BC, Tiberius Gracchus, as tribune, proposed a law to redistribute public land. The senatorial elite, viewing this as a threat, had him and his followers killed. A decade later, his brother Gaius attempted a broader set of reforms and met a similar fate in 121 BC. The deaths of the Gracchi brothers marked a turning point, introducing political violence as a means to resolve internal disputes. The situation was further altered by the military reforms of Gaius Marius. He eliminated the property requirement for military service and recruited soldiers from the landless poor, promising them land upon retirement. This professionalized the army, but also shifted soldiers' loyalty from the state to their generals. Marius's rival, Lucius Cornelius Sulla, later marched his legions on Rome in a dispute over a military command, an unprecedented act. After securing victory in the east, Sulla returned, had himself declared dictator, and instituted the proscriptions, a series of state-sanctioned murders of his political opponents. Sulla eventually retired, but his actions demonstrated that military power could override Roman law and institutions. This set the stage for the final collapse of the Republic, dominated by three powerful men who formed a political alliance known as the First Triumvirate: the general Pompey the Great, the immensely wealthy Marcus Licinius Crassus, and the politician Gaius Julius Caesar. After Crassus was killed in battle, the alliance dissolved, leaving Pompey and Caesar as rivals. As Caesar gained fame and power through his conquest of Gaul, the Senate, allied with Pompey, ordered him to disband his army. Caesar faced a choice between ruin and civil war. In January 49 BC, he led his army across the Rubicon River, an act of treason that initiated a civil war. He is reported to have said, "Alea iacta est," the die is cast. Caesar swiftly defeated Pompey and his allies. He returned to Rome and was made dictator for life. His accumulation of power alarmed many senators who feared he sought to become a king. On March 15, 44 BC, a group of senators assassinated Caesar, believing they were saving the Republic. Instead, their actions triggered another round of civil wars. The rise of the empire and the Pax Romana, Caesar's assassination created a power vacuum filled by a new triumvirate. This time, an official, legally sanctioned dictatorship composed of Caesar's general Mark Antony, the politician Lepidus, and Caesar's adopted heir, his grandnephew Octavian. They defeated Caesar's assassins at the Battle of Philippi. Soon, rivalry developed between Antony and Octavian. The Roman world was divided, with Antony controlling the east and forming an alliance with the Egyptian queen Cleopatra, while Octavian controlled the west. Through a skillful propaganda campaign, Octavian portrayed Antony as a threat to Rome. The final conflict occurred at the naval battle of Actium in 31 BC, where Octavian's forces, commanded by Marcus Agrippa, defeated the fleet of Antony and Cleopatra. Both subsequently committed suicide, leaving Octavian the sole ruler of the Roman world. At 32 years old, Octavian faced the challenge of consolidating his power without alienating the Senate, which still opposed the idea of a king. He devised a new political order. In 27 BC, he formally returned power to the Senate, which in turn persuaded him to remain in charge, granting him a collection of powers and the new title Augustus. He was not called king, but princeps, or first citizen. In practice, this system, known as the Principate, established the Roman Empire with Augustus as its first emperor, holding absolute control over the military and administration. Augustus's 45-year reign initiated a golden age. He professionalized the army, established the Praetorian Guard, reformed taxation, and oversaw a vast building program in Rome, famously stating he found a Rome of bricks and left it one of marble. Most significantly, Augustus's rule began a two-century period of relative peace and stability, known as the Pax Romana. Roman peace. While wars continued on the frontiers, the core of the empire was free from civil war. Trade expanded, the economy prospered, and Roman culture flourished, producing seminal works by poets like Virgil and Horace. The height of the empire. Augustus's political system was continued by his successors in the Julio-Claudian dynasty, which included the emperors Tiberius, the cruel Caligula, Claudius, who oversaw the conquest of Britain, and Nero. Nero's reign degenerated into tyranny, and he is infamously associated with the Great Fire of Rome in 64 AD and the first major persecution of Christians. His overthrow in 68 AD led to a brief civil war, the Year of the Four Emperors. Stability was restored by Vespasian, who founded the Flavian dynasty. Vespasian and his sons, Titus and Domitian, began major construction projects, including the Flavian Amphitheater, which would come to be known as the Colosseum. The assassination of the autocratic Domitian in 96 AD ushered in the era of the five good emperors: Nerva, Trajan, Hadrian, Antoninus Pius, and Marcus Aurelius. This period is considered the peak of the Roman Empire's power and prosperity. A key to their success was a system of succession where each emperor adopted a capable and proven successor. Under Trajan, the empire reached its maximum territorial extent with his conquests of Dacia, modern Romania, and territories in the east. His successor, Hadrian, shifted to a strategy of consolidation, strengthening the empire's frontiers. His most famous project was Hadrian's Wall in northern Britain, built to defend the Roman province. The reign of Antoninus Pius was remarkably peaceful, while that of Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher-emperor, was marked by constant warfare against Germanic tribes on the northern frontier. Marcus Aurelius's personal writings, the Meditations, are a major work of Stoic philosophy. In a fateful decision, Marcus Aurelius broke with the tradition of adopting a successor and appointed his own son, Commodus. The death of Marcus Aurelius in 180 AD and the accession of the erratic Commodus is widely regarded as the end of the Pax Romana. The historian Cassius Dio wrote that this transition marked a descent from a kingdom of gold to one of iron and rust, signaling the beginning of Rome's long decline. The crisis of the 3rd century. The reign of Commodus was marked by instability and megalomania, and his assassination in 192 AD led to another civil war. The subsequent Severan dynasty restored order but governed through the military. The Emperor Septimius Severus advised his sons to enrich the soldiers and scorn all other men, a policy that made the emperor dependent on the army's loyalty. This led to a 50-year period of anarchy known as the crisis of the 3rd century, 235–284 AD. It was characterized by near-constant civil war, economic collapse, and foreign invasions. During this time, at least 26 barracks emperors were proclaimed by their troops, with most dying violently. To pay the armies, emperors severely debased the currency, leading to hyperinflation that crippled the economy. The empire was also weakened by a widespread plague and increased pressure on its frontiers from Germanic confederations like the Goths and a resurgent Persian Empire in the east. The empire briefly fractured into 3 separate states: the Gallic Empire, the Palmyrene Empire, and the Central Roman State. The empire was pulled back from the brink by a series of military emperors, notably Aurelian, who reunified the territory and earned the title Restitutor Orbis, Restorer of the World. Although the crisis was overcome, the empire that emerged was profoundly altered, more militarized and autocratic, with its economy and society deeply scarred. The split and the fall. The Emperor Diocletian, who came to power in 284 AD, instituted major reforms to address the empire's structural problems. Concluding that the empire was too large for a single ruler, he established the Tetrarchy, a system of rule by 4 emperors, dividing the empire into an eastern and a western half. Diocletian also reformed the military and administration and launched the final major persecution of Christians. The Tetrarchy collapsed into civil war after Diocletian's retirement. Constantine the Great emerged as the sole ruler. Before a key battle in 312 AD, Constantine supposedly had a vision of a Christian symbol, which he ordered painted on his soldiers' shields. After his victory, he became the first emperor to convert to Christianity. Through the Edict of Milan, he granted religious tolerance, ending the persecutions and allowing Christianity to flourish with imperial support. Constantine also moved the capital of the empire to a new city, Constantinople, built on the site of Byzantium. After Constantine, the division between the eastern and western halves of the empire became permanent. The Eastern Roman Empire, centered at Constantinople, was more populous, urbanized, and economically stable. The Western Roman Empire grew progressively weaker, struggling with economic decline and the difficulty of defending its extensive frontiers. The final phase of collapse was accelerated during the migration period. The arrival of the Huns from Central Asia in the late 4th century displaced Gothic tribes, who then sought refuge within the Roman Empire. Mistreatment by Roman officials led to a Gothic revolt and a catastrophic Roman defeat at the Battle of Adrianople in 378. In the decades that followed, the Western Empire faced numerous invasions. In 410, the Visigoths under Alaric sacked the city of Rome, a major psychological blow. Other Germanic tribes, including Vandals, Suebi, and Alans, crossed the Rhine River and established kingdoms in former Roman provinces like Gaul, Spain, and North Africa. The loss of North Africa, a vital source of grain, was particularly damaging. By the mid-5th century, the Western Roman Emperor held little real power, which was instead wielded by Germanic military commanders. The final event occurred in 476 AD, when the Germanic chieftain Odoacer deposed the last Western emperor, Romulus Augustulus. Odoacer did not assume the imperial title, instead sending the imperial insignia to the emperor in Constantinople. This event marks the traditional date for the end of the Western Roman Empire. The unending legacy. The fall of the Western Roman Empire in 476 was not the end of Roman history. In the East, the empire, today known as the Byzantine Empire, survived for nearly another 1,000 years until the fall of Constantinople in 1453. The legacy of ancient Rome, however, is deeply embedded in the foundations of Western civilization. Its influence is evident in government and law. Concepts such as the Republic, the Senate, and written legal codes form the basis of many modern legal systems. The Latin language evolved into the Romance languages, Italian, French, Spanish, Portuguese, and Romanian, and provides a vast amount of vocabulary for English and the terminology of science and medicine. Roman engineering produced structures like the Colosseum and the Pantheon, along with extensive networks of roads and aqueducts that were unparalleled in the ancient world and influenced urban design for centuries. Furthermore, the Roman Empire's adoption of Christianity was instrumental in its spread and eventual dominance in Europe. The history of Rome, from its mythical founding to its eventual fragmentation, is a central chapter in world history, and its achievements and failures continue to be studied for the lessons they offer on power, civilization, and societal change.